Hello, and welcome to the Academy of Natural Sciences. My name is Amy Hoyt, and I'm a Youth and Family Programs educator here at the museum. Welcome to Crafting for the Climate. Each month, we'll post a new video for you to follow along and build a useful, eco-friendly craft. You will also learn how small, everyday actions can help to reverse climate change and benefit the environment as you create a useful item out of trash. Today, we will be making paper. This isn't just any paper, it's paper made out of other paper. You might be thinking, what does paper have to do with climate change? Making paper involves energy, chemicals, wood, and water. The wood needs to first be cooked, which involves burning fossil fuels. This process adds carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide traps the heat from the sun, which warms the planet. The wood comes from trees, which remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. If too many trees are cut down, the carbon dioxide will build up and make the planet warmer as well. Using less new wood for paper will go a long way to help with climate change. Let's get started. First, you will need a bowl, some scrap paper, and I'm using sales flyers and some scrap paper from leftover craft activities. You'll also need a blender, a tray, and a window screen or a colander. Last, you need some towels and some water. If you want to add some extra stuff to your paper, you can go outside and grab some twigs or some leaves or some pine needles and put them in the mixture. Some paper making places will use partially old and partially new materials. While this is better than all new materials, it does add some carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So first, we're going to tear up some paper, and you want to tear it up as small as possible. The smaller, the better for blending it up in the blender. And this is the part that takes the longest, because the more paper you put in there, the bigger your end paper will be. So I'm going to add a bunch of this scrap paper that I have left over from a crafting project where I was making some cards. And once that's all torn up, then we're going to go ahead and add some water. And you want to make sure that you add enough water that it blends well in your blender. So we're going to add a bunch of water. It's probably a cup, but it might be a little bit more. And then you're going to squish your paper around. And this is kind of where it gets messy. And the more you squish your paper up, and the longer you do this, the better this will blend in the end. So it looks like my paper soaked up a lot of the water. So I'm going to go ahead and add more water. And some more paper. And again, I'm using scrap construction paper, but you can use sales flyers, you can use old coloring book pages, and all kinds of fun stuff. And you'll notice that our paper mixture is turning a fun pink color from that pink paper and some of those sales flyers. So if your paper has color on it, don't worry about that at all, because that will make your new paper lots of fun colors. So this is pretty squishy and good. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the blender. And friends, with blenders, these guys have sharp things on the inside, sharp blades on the inside. So go ahead and get your grown-ups help with this part, and then pour the water and the paper into the blender. And if you don't have a blender, friends, you can keep squishing and mushing with your hands, but the blender makes it a whole lot easier. Don't forget to put the lid back on so you don't make a giant mess. And then you're going to blend. And this gets a little loud, my friends, so if you don't like loud noises, you might want to cover your ears and let your grown-up blend for you. And I'm going to turn that off and just make sure that I'm getting all of that paper down in there to make it nice and soppy and soaky. And we're going to do this again. Oh. Okay, so that looks good. We're going to put that blender aside, and then you're going to take your towels and you're going to lay them down on the desk or your table so you don't make a giant mess all over the place. And you're going to put your colander or your window screen on top, and then you're going to take your paper and you're going to dump it out on the window screen. And we're going to dump out as much as we can get. And you're going to kind of squish down onto the window screen. Friends, if you wanted to add some fun stuff to your paper, you can also take some leaves and crumble them up with your fingers. Kind of squish and mish and blend that in. And then you're going to take your paper and you're going to flatten out and try to get out as much of that water as you can. And if you don't want to touch this with your bare hands, or you want to get more water out, you can take a second towel and press down as much as you can and get as much of that paper or that water out of that paper as you can. And I'm just checking on my size and my shape. I'm going to spread this out a little bit more. And the flatter the better, and the drier the better. Sometimes it takes a little bit of muscle. So I'm using my hands and my knuckles, and I'm putting all of my weight into this. And I'm a grown-up, so that's a whole lot of muscle. But the flatter you squish it, and the more you spread it out, and the more water you get out of it, the better. So what are some good alternatives to paper? Paper that's made from recyclable materials is your best option. If you have paper that's only printed on one side, using the back side of the paper is also a great option. Reusing cardboard or wrapping paper for coloring is also great. See if you can come up with different options to using new paper. And if your paper is a little bit too chunky, you can always throw it back in the blender and blend it up. Or if you wanted to add, like I said, some nature to your paper, like leaves or sticks or pine needles, you can go ahead and throw them in. And if you don't want them chunky like mine, you can throw them in the blender too. So when you're done and it's kind of flat and it's dried out and you've gotten out as much water as you can, then you can go ahead and flip your screen or your colander onto a tray. And then you're going to let this dry. And it's going to take a few days. And after a few days, it'll be nice and dry. And you can go ahead and cut it into a shape and hang it into your room. You can fold it into a card and send it to one of your friends in the mail. You can do all kinds of things with your paper. You can even write on it. Thanks for joining us today, friends. We hope you had fun.